Oh, it's a new year, new show. Hey, let us begin.
Okay, Happy New Year for Thursday, January 6th, 2022. Welcome to This Is Only a Test, the official podcast of Tested.com. Happy New Year, everyone. Welcome back to the show. We are back from our break off last week. It feels like it's been a month since I've seen you guys last. Well, I guess, Jeremy, we did see each other a little bit, and we'll talk about that experience. But how are you guys doing? Kishore, how are you doing? How was your holidays?
It was great. I would describe it as nourishing. I took a road trip to see family and then went to a national park. It was my first time going to Joshua Tree. I will say that you should be banned from playing that U2 album once you're inside the park. But outside of that, it was an awesome experience. And I feel like I was very disconnected from technology most of the break. And then came back and just dove head into all the technology I acquired over Christmas. And now I'm ready to beat my head against a wall for all the problems I'm having with it.
Tech support, holidays. Jeremy, how about you? Good holiday break?
I do not support a ban on YouTube albums pre-Actung Baby at any time in any national park. I had a good time. We had a wonderful, relaxing holiday. We did not travel. We did not have guests. We enjoyed the holiday. I did go out and see my mom. She lives locally. The whole family did, and it was nice. It was great. Yeah, no complaints. It was a very relaxing holiday, and I already miss it.
I'm very happy for the holiday to be over, not because work is starting up again, but because daycare is starting up again. You know, the scam that is daycare, and I understand daycare needs breaks, but we had some sick kids 2 weeks before the holiday break. Daycare is off for 2 weeks. Still got to pay for the full month. So happy for the kid to be back in school. But we did have some house guests. Some family came over, and so we had two young kids staying in our house as well. And I'm telling you, keeping a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old occupied for about a week is not an easy thing to do. You know, I was keeping a 5-year-old occupied. They're very impressionable, but 13-year-olds, I got nothing. Not impressed. Unimpressed with everything. You would think I got all the stuff to be impressive.
Yeah. Well, no. You need actual hands-on toys. You don't have like a Nerf arsenal, right? Like that would be handy.
I don't even think a 13-year-old's in a Nerf. You know, today's 13. I'm finding today's 13-year-olds.
They've aged out of it.
They're way too cool.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're way too cool.
Don't you have some like spare phones that you could have just handed them and just been like, see you in a few hours?
The thing they wanted the most was VR. First of all, they wanted to try the Valve Index, the Index controllers, and they wanted to play Blade and Sorcery, and the Boneworks. They want to play Boneworks.
Crazy.
They want to play Blade and Sorcery, and then they start name dropping like 3 other Blade and Sorcery type games that were even better in their mind because you could tear people's arms off and bash their faces in. So might give you a sense of like, you know, the what the kids are watching today on YouTube, and or you know the clips they find on TikTok in VR, because it's Gorn is too tepid at this point. It's got to be Blade and Sorcery or even more gruesome.
Yeah. So did you get them in a game together?
No. I not enough time. So we had to do it after the kids went to bed. So
Gotcha.
It was like a whole, and you know, the sweet spot in bedtime. But you know, set up some Steam VR trackers or lighthouses in the kitchen, and did set up a laptop for the Valve Index, and work great.
Have either of you watched the show on Apple TV called Mythic Quest?
I haven't. I heard it's really good though.
It's a show about, you know, a fictitious game development company, and the very first episode, which is all I've watched, but I just finally watched it yesterday, and I can't wait to watch episode 2. is about a shovel, and one of the developers just wants to make a shovel, but the lead designer wants to make it a weapon, and he knows that the world will love it if it's a weapon, and the world will hate it if it's just a shovel. So it goes back to that, and then of course, like there's a Twitch streamer who is about the age of your nephew, your older nephew, and it all comes together. I think you would appreciate the episode.
You know, if you want to go deeper into it, it's about physics objects. If every object, if you go with the Boneworks mentality of it, and every object is a physics object, then whether it's a weapon or not is not a discrete thing you toggle as a developer. It just has the quantifiable, the quality of impact.
Art imitates life.
Right?
You're describing reality.
And I'm sure as we've learned from our conversations with VR developers, you got to have the expectation meet the experience. If they expect to be able to use it as a weapon or lift up a heavy object and wield something for whatever purpose, and their experience doesn't match that expectation, then they're going to have a bad time. It's a more reflection on the gamer than it is on the developer. Anyway, we digress. And as video game portrayals of video game developers, of which I'm not one, is always a sticking point for me, as we're talking about with a Free Guy. But we'll get to that also. How about a quick media update? Because in the 2 weeks since we've chatted, a bunch of stuff have come out, a bunch of highly anticipated stuff. We saw the end of Hawkeye and beginning of the Boba Fett show. Why don't we start there? Did you guys wrap up Hawkeye and start Boba Fett?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Any non-spoiler thoughts?
I did not think Hawkeye stuck the landing. I think they tried to tell like 3 or 4 separate stories separately instead of one cohesive story. And it suffered because of that. I still enjoyed that series. Maybe my inner Grinch is coming out, but I actively disliked that Boba Fett episode. Wow. I was not taken in. I was not taken in by even the mood of the entire thing. It's trying to retcon what I loved about Boba Fett, and I don't appreciate it.
It's trying to retcon what you love about Boba Fett, which is that you did not know anything at all. That you just love that he had a cool look, but no backstory. And the fact that they are telling a backstory may be an impossible task to meet the expectation in your mind.
I'm all on for the ride. I mean, these guys love Star Wars as much as I do, and I'm going to see where they're headed. It's just episode 1 so far. Mm-hmm. I'll give them another few shows to bring it around. I'm kind of with Kishore. It's not Mandalorian. It's not as immediately satisfying as that. But it's Star Wars TV, and it's got some practical props. And did you see the robots?
I want to call that out. So I concur with the idea. I go back to that meme, like people share that on the image of these 2 kids playing with AT-ATs and Star Wars toys, and that's basically Favreau and Filoni right now. That they get to Star Wars is their sandbox, and they get to play. And in that analogy, you're the kid that might want to bring your own Boba Fett toy to the sandbox, and they have their story they want to tell, and might not be the one that you want to do, and you don't feel like you have agency in that world. And now it's also Robert Rodriguez,
that's right,
running that show as well. But yes, the robots, the cameo. If you pay attention on Tatooine as they hit the marketplace, it's just maybe for 5 or 6 seconds, but you have these 3 robots that walk around, and it might look familiar to tested viewers because I think those are Boston. I know those are Boston Dynamics spot robots.
Yeah, dressed up and not using, it appears to me like a different software gate, walking gate or anything like that. It's straight out of the factory, but dressed up to look, I wouldn't say futuristic because it happens a long time ago, but it looks otherworldly. Very cool.
Yeah, I'm curious whether those were puppeted directly with the remote control or if they were using the scripted walk function or
right.
the AI, the camera vision based walk function of. But I think probably very intentional. And to have a practical prop like that, a character like that on set. I wish they were there for more than just that cameo appearance. Going back to Hawkeye as well, Kishore, I agree with some parts. I think they tried to do too much. I think they juggled the plot lines better than Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I do think the appearance of a surprise character in the last episode and penultimate episode was unfulfilling. Like that portrayal, I thought, as much as I love the character and the actor, I don't think they needed to have that much of that character in that finale. Didn't feel like they earned it.
But they tie it all together. Like there's a larger reason for this, right? Because it's going to tie into a movie or another series,
another show. Yes,
yeah.
Yes. I guess we can say Echo, the character that's introduced here. We talked about Maya Lopez. She's going to get a spin-off show, and here's my suspicion. This is pure speculation, and I'm not going to dive into any other spoilers. But I think it's going to be an Echo show. I don't think they would call and announce it Echo and it be a code name for another show. But I think that's how they're going to bring Daredevil into the MCU, is in that show, either as a supporting character or a cameo appearance of some kind. But I think that's going to be their hook, because as good as that character, as well as she was written in Hawkeye, she's still really new, like C-tier hero in the Marvel comics, and I think they're going to need more familiar hooks.
If I'm not mistaken, they've already brought Daredevil into the MCU.
We'll leave it at that for the spoiler averse for people who have not seen recent things.
What's the statute of limitations on this? When can we start spoiling a show that aired weeks ago?
When everyone in the room has seen said show and movie. Not everyone has seen what you're talking about, Jeremy Williams.
Oh,
it's okay. I put that one together. I'm excited that Spider-Man is doing as well as it is. I just haven't been able to go to a theater given everything that's happening COVID-wise. But it's sort of remarkable. I saw a report yesterday that 30% of the 2021 domestic box office was from Marvel movies. That's insane.
Yep.
That's actually not healthy.
Do they include Venom in that?
Probably.
Right. That's the Sony universe of Marvel characters.
Doesn't that count though? I mean, it's a Marvel character.
Sure, but that's not, that's not, yes, you could say then superhero characters, right? Like but I take your point. I think people love superhero movies. Those are the movies that have made a ton of money at the box office. Spider-Man is going to be the third highest grossing movie of all time, I think, when it's all said and done, after Endgame and Infinity War. Blew everyone's expectations out of the water, got people to the theaters, and Jeremy, got you to the theater in a limited special engagement. You got to run one of those private viewing parties.
Anybody can rent them. I did it. Yes, Kishore is the one who planted the seed. He saw a theater for rent, and then I don't know, we all couldn't make it or something like that, and it ended up being purchased. So I kept checking throughout the week and found one. $200. You could bring like 30 people. I didn't do that. I brought my kids, and they each brought a friend, and I invited you guys, and only Norm could make it with his nephews, and we had a good time. Good time was had by all. I think that's a great use of $200 on a Christmas break to go out and see the latest Spider-Man movie. So I feel good about it. Yeah, it's a good time.
Thank you for the invite. I mean, reason I didn't know it was $200. I feel like that's reasonably priced, especially if you go up to 20, 30 people, right? At a point where you're 15 to 20 people, you're already paid for. It feels like you would have paid $200 in ticket prices. Anyway, what did you think of that experience of watching it in like an empty theater? You could almost have an entire row to yourself. You must have loved it, right? Because you don't like the crowds.
100%. Yeah, I loved it because everybody, everyone's trustworthy. No one's looking at their phone. No one's making noise. You can sit far away from each other. It's a great experience. Obviously, it's a great experience. Who wouldn't want to rent an entire movie theater to themselves? Loved it.
It was my second time watching the movie, and I gotta say, not as thrilling. Not just because it was the second time, not as thrilling as watching it with strangers in a packed theater. And I know that's not for everyone, but this is a crowd pleaser of a movie. it's a movie where people were cheering at the screen, adds to your own endorphins, like building off of the energy. It's like a concert. Like I don't get people who book musicians for those private concerts in a living room. So awkward, no energy. Like I would never want to do that.
Maybe the next level for you is, instead of purchasing a movie to see purchasing a ticket to see the movie in 3D or in 4D or in Sensorama, you could purchase the version of the movie that has like added audience eruptions, like piped in surround sound. So, and people eating popcorn behind you, and extra lighting effects that like people checking their phone in front of you. And it could all come together as if the theater is filled with people who are half enjoying the movie and half talking to one another. And then it would be just what you wanted. It would be like a real, communal experience.
I would take the big screen experience, minus the phones, minus the popcorn. But if it was live, synchronized audio feedback of other people in real time watching it around the world, like we're all going to rent our theaters, but it's all going to have the same relative screen time. And maybe it's like asynchronous, where it's recorded at the right moment, but I feel like they're live, honest reactions. I would feel thrilled by that.
Okay.
I think there's something there. It's an extra audio channel. Maybe for sports too, an extra audio channel tapped in for a microphone from your local sports bar. All the oohs and ahs and the cheers of the exciting moments. I think there's something to it. Well, people didn't show up in the movie theaters for, unfortunately, The Matrix Resurrections. It was on HBO Max at home in the US, so that's where I watched it on my TV. Did you guys see Matrix?
Yep.
And we're going to leave it at that.
The internet seems to hate it. I did not hate it. I think that's probably why. I watched it after everyone else had seen it, and everyone else was giving it a big thumbs down. So I went into it thinking, well, hey, it's going to be a bad Matrix movie. I'm used to it now. And it ended up being all right. Like, I thought it was all right. Like, I saw some interesting, I found the writing to be, I would say, interesting. And it had some parallels to media and people today. And I thought that was, an interesting take. And, so the fighting scenes aren't that great. And so, it doesn't seem like it has quite the budget of other Matrix films. And it's not going to be the first Matrix film all over again. But, it was an interesting take on it. And I was not terribly disappointed. I don't think I'll see it again, but it wasn't terrible.
I was thinking of, obviously the weight of expectations was handicapping this film. The very expectation that the film, I think, very smartly addresses that in the beginning in the first part. I think the conceit of the first part was something that I wasn't really grooving with. Not the game developer aspect, once again, like portrayals of game development. There were like cringy characters that the writing was a little bit too cringy for me in the opening part, and I actually enjoyed the second half a lot more. I love the mythology of the real world of the Matrix, like what happened after the Matrix revolutions with Zion and Morpheus and the truce between the machines and the humans. Like, I love that stuff. I found actually what was lacking the most was probably the action. I think the action was Shang-Chi had better action. Like, I felt it lacked the Hong Kong cinema influence. It was quick cuts, and I don't need new innovations like new bullet time. But everything, like the first opening action scene, I loved that, the rooftop chase scene. I loved that part, but everything else just didn't feel anything.
I kind of appreciated it was. It set out to be a subtle troll job, and I kind of wish they kind of kept that up, because it was sort of interesting writing. But you're right, like, where this falls flat is, like, it's still a Matrix movie. There's got to be some action sequences that you're like, wow, and it never quite delivered on that. It was a very talky movie. I was surprised at how much just dialogue there was.
Exposition. It was a lot of exposition. Like, the middle third of the movie was exposition, and even the whole setup of like, this is the plan. Like, felt very. I like the heist aspect of it. I felt very Matrix Reloaded, right? Like, we have this limited amount of time. We must do X, Y, and Z. That felt very familiar. There were some great cameos. Did you so it's in the trailer, right? They're back in the Matrix. Neo and Trinity don't know each other. Trinity's actually married. Do you know the guy who played Trinity's husband? Do you know who that is?
Mm-mm.
His name was Chad in the movie, right? And you're supposed to not like him. That's Chad Stahelski, who is the director of John Wick and was Neo, Keanu Reeves' stunt double in the original Matrix.
Whoa, that's crazy.
So that's an extra meta level of cameo that they put her with the stunt double, who's now a famous director of John Wick, as a nice cameo. But I think, even kind of the awareness of John Wick, right? Like the action sequences that we've come to love from those films, I think far surpass what we saw in this film. There was also a cameo, John Gaeta, the inventor of bullet time at ILM. He was there as one of the video game developers when they talked about, I think he had a line about being swatted or something. But yeah, I think it was enjoyable. I don't think it was worth going to the theater to see, and I'm happy to have watched it at home. One last bit of kind of pop culture. Things have been, you might have seen it now on Twitter, but everyone's into Wordle. What's the deal with Wordle?
Are they
I just want to acknowledge it.
Are they into Wordle because of the cool way to share your progress?
That's it. That's they made, and there's a whole New York Times story about the creation of this game. If you're unfamiliar, there's a website. It's a web-based puzzle game. It's like, not Sudoku, but the same idea, a new puzzle every day, only one puzzle every day. It's a simple word puzzle where you're supposed to decipher a 5-letter word, 5-character word, and they give you 6 tries. And then your result is something you can share. And there's only one word per day. They're on like the 200th word at the recording of this podcast.
Just to be clear, you share your results without sharing any information about the word is.
Yes.
So
yes.
Everyone can see how quickly you figured out the word, but they don't know anything about what the word is, which is very clever. And the way that they share it is just text characters that are indicative of the gameplay if you know the game. So like there's 3 different colors of squares, and they give you a X rows of the right color squares, and so anybody who sees that knows how quickly you deciphered what the word is, but they still don't know what the answer is. Very clever, and it's text based, so you easily can tweet it.
Yeah, and it's a simple game to play. I think there are 2 brilliant things for one puzzle a day. So it has that little the repetitive aspect, the water cooler aspect,
right.
As we talked with Playdate, right? Like the whole everyone get together has a shared experience at this cadence of once a day, and then a quick and easy way to share it, where if you play the game, exactly there's a boasting aspect to it. You have people sharing and commiserating either in the frustration of not solving it or solving it with 6 tries, or people boasting they solved it in 1 or 2 tries.
It's interesting. It has a kind of asynchronous vibe of HQ Trivia. Remember that live trivia game where everyone played together in the moment?
Right.
After those games, people would get on Twitter and talk about their experience. But this is like all day long, so it's clever. I'm glad that they're having some success.
I've been playing for a week. I still don't understand what the 199, 196, 200, what those numbers mean. I understand the 4 out of 6, 6 out of 6. I get that, but I don't know what that number
just means.
means.
How many puzzles they've done. So is
that the puzzle number?
Yeah,
got
puzzle
it.
Number. Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, and people play.
See,
for
I learn things on this podcast.
There you go. So if you see a block of icons, green, gray, and I guess tan, on your Twitter feed, and people posting at 12:01 a.m. Pacific time, it's because they're really into Wordle.
Oh, is the whole world at 12 a.m. Pacific time?
I don't know. I assume yes.
I know it's a single website, but I just assumed because that's so strange because they're in the UK. I would have assumed that they would roll over at their midnight. I
don't know. Yeah, it tells you how many hours till the next one, and maybe it's just it's close to midnight. I think. It's when I see a lot of the Wordle obsessives start posting. Okay. We're going to move on with the rest of the show. We're going to talk about CES because that's happening this week, guys. It came out of nowhere. We are so far detached from the CES experience, not having been for a couple of years, and obviously not going this year. It's been shortened, but there have been no shortage of announcements there. And so let's start with the big one, what people have been asking on me, at least on Twitter, all the past 24 hours. We have the announcement of the specs and the name of the next PlayStation VR headset for PS5. And unsurprisingly, and maybe disappointingly a little bit, it's PSVR 2.
That's not a
It's not
disappointment.
disappointing.
It's not.
It's fine.
Nor is it a
It's-
surprise.
It's unsurprising for sure. I was hoping for, I like the days of Project Morpheus, of the code names. I was hoping for another code name, something a little more interesting. But PSVR 2, okay.
I submit to you the naming convention for all PlayStations.
there you go. Yes, PSVR 2, not requiring the PSI on PS5.
Right. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some of these specs. So some things we've known already for a long time. It's still going to be a corded headset, single USB-C cable, inside-out tracking, so no PSI external camera required. 4 cameras on there that also track the new motion controllers. Display-wise, it's going to be 4,000 pixels wide. So I think they haven't said whether it's 2 panels or 1 panel. Because there's IPD adjustment, my assumption is 2 panels. Each of the panels are roughly square at 2,000 by 2025 pixels tall. So just a little bit taller than it is wide. And then FOV, which is a very ambiguous term, depending on how you measure it, they're calling it 110 degrees, although that's unspecified whether that's diagonal or horizontal. Although it sounds like there's no physical eye relief. The old PS5 or PSVR, you could move the headset closer to your eyes, fit over your glasses, your face, and get a slightly wider FOV that way. It's just going to have IPD adjustment. Eye tracking, foveated rendering, these are going to be big first for a mainstream headset. Right, we expect them to come with the new Oculus or Meta Cambria next year or this year. But eye tracking on PSVR, and controllers will have some version of their haptics that they have in the PS5. DualSense controllers.
Well, they've confirmed that the triggers will have the amazing motor adaptive haptics, which are in the DualSense. That's great. It will also have linear actuators to give you some other rumble effects, which are quality, but only 1 per controller.
And then the headset itself will have a single motor to do some type of Spidey sense haptics.
Yeah.
Right, to give you a little bit of tingle or a heartbeat pump or something. That feels very nice and novel, especially since it's going to be encouraging developers on PS5 platform to tap into those new features. 90 hertz refresh rate, up to 120 hertz, depending on, I guess, what the game renders at. And I guess that's it, right? Built-in microphone and no built-in headphones. You still got to use your own headphones with the stereo jack.
Oh, is that true?
That's what it says. Output is stereo headphone jack. Although they did say 3D audio, but that could just be processing. Yeah.
So is the fact that this is tethered just a deal killer? I just don't get it.
That's
why this is tethered.
That's the Oculus Quest subreddit right now. That everyone's saying once you go tetherless, you can't go back. And there is something to be said for that, 100%. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a first party or third party wireless adapter for this, because they really just need to transmit USB-C information and get power to the unit.
And there's no reason the PS5 wouldn't be capable of doing that.
Well, there'd be some sort of external thing like the Vive had, or
it would have to be that way rather than Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I would think so. But especially given that you're going to need some kind of massive battery pack for it. But even if that existed, 99% of people are still going to do it tethered. I really don't think that's a big deal, because the PSVR was hugely successful even in the middle of Quest 1's dominance in the mobile VR space. And I just think this is a great thing. I'm most excited about the features. I'm so happy that there is finally a mainstream VR headset with eye tracking. I think that's going to be huge. I think people are underestimating how that's going to impact everything. You look at menus know what you're looking at. It's going to make targeting enemies an act of will. I've played VR games with eye tracking, and it really opens up possibilities that I don't think people have considered yet. In addition to obviously social real eye movement, which is going to create a better sense of actual people behind these avatars, as well as the foveated rendering, which is massive because it's going to allow the PSVR to render much closer to the type of graphics people expect from the PS5, given that it has to render it twice, one for each eye, as well as at a higher frame rate. It's going to be tough for them to pull that off, but with foveated rendering, they can get a lot closer to it.
Yeah, I think the tethered versus untethered conversation. I think because this is going to be in the rooms that people have their PS5s in, the living rooms, the dens, right? Not necessarily a dedicated VR space. A lot of people played PSVR games. A lot of those games are designed for couch play. You would wear the headset on a couch with the controllers. I don't think tethered. It's not room scale like that. I think we are much further away from the kind of Valve's original hope for 15 feet by 15 feet room scale style experiences. There are going to be those that probably work with this headset, but I think the comfort of sitting and just being immersed while using thumbsticks to move around has been this kind of happy medium for people staying a long time in VR. So I don't think it's going to be as big an issue.
Plus,
obviously, yeah.
It sounds like there's not any kind of breakout box, which was a big pain in the butt for the first one. Like you had to plug in this whole separate box, which took its own separate power supply, got HDMI going into that, into your PlayStation, and you had like 2 cables coming out to the PSVR or something like that. It was unpleasant, to say the least. So if it's a single cable, I think, it's almost going to be like playing Oculus with the old school Link cable. It should be pretty simple.
Yeah, and when you talk about tethered versus untethered, there's also a difference between untethered rendered locally and untethered rendered and wirelessly transmitted, which Quest can do both, of course, right? But one of the natural benefits of the rendering being offloaded, not on headset, not just for battery and weight, is that you can display it on your TV. And you can't discount the fact that when people are in headset, PSVR had the ability you can watch TV and someone playing the PSVR in the headset, but also have the option of seeing what the person sees, or those asymmetrical games, which I would love to see more of in PSVR 2. No announcement for pricing or time. I think it's going to have you competitively priced. My guess is $350. I could see it go up to $400 because of all the hardware, but it's tough to get a PS5 now, and they're having so much success with that I think the attach rate for this, especially since they've decreased the friction of the install with single cable, is going to be pretty high. They also announced a new exclusive game, Horizon, from Guerrilla. So the footage we saw of that all looked, like you said, what people would expect of a PS5 style game.
It's not one of the 2 Horizon games. It's a third game. It's something new entirely. So
get ready to shoot some arrows.
Yeah,
that's which actually is not a bad use of VR. You think by Christmas? That's what I wondered. Like, I wasn't sure. I didn't get a good feel based on the announcement because we didn't see any renders of the thing, so it may be a concern whether they'll actually deliver by next Christmas or not.
I think they're hedging the bets based on number of PS5 sold, supply chain for that, how many are stuck on boats, and also manufacturing and quantity for this. And they have no problem putting out limited number of units and having demand be high because people will always want them. The lifespan of the PS5 is going to still be still feels like launch year with a whole year of it being unavailable. And then consider development times. I think they had to show renders of this headset last year because developers were getting their dev units already, and it feels a year and a half of development time is going to be plenty to get some experiences out there. Also, Sony now owns Insomniac, right? And Insomniac has tons of VR experience of the games they made for the Oculus platform, and they also do the Spider-Man game. So I feel like Spider-Man for PS5, PSVR 2 is going to be a no-brainer.
I can see the reviews now. You feel like Spider-Man. It's going to be great.
You too can wear the mask. Anyone can wear the mask.
The Quest is hugely successful. I mean, they've sold 10 million units. It's massively successful, and it's clearly where all the business is right now. But if there's one thing people complain about, it's the quality of the graphics. It is not console level, and it just can't be on a mobile processor. Yes, you can do wireless streaming from a PC, you can do Link from a PC, but I don't think the majority of people are doing that. That is a small subset of the Quest ownership. And so where all the money's being made is in these mobile games. I think where PlayStation really has a chance to make take a stand is in doing the mainstream PCVR essentially experience, which is really great graphics, complicated geometry and fascinating lighting and like the whole 9 yards. So this could be like what we want from PCVR gone mainstream, and then you'll have Quest and PlayStation as like the two main VR players. That's kind of how I see this playing out.
It's so funny because you talk about the expectations of gamers, and when people complain about bad graphics, what they're saying is that they just want quote unquote photorealistic graphics. They are not happy with stylized graphics that are optimized for for geometry over textures and over shaders. They want shaders through the roof, and they want textures, high resolution. They want photorealism because in their head, that's what they expect out of either a high-end console game or a VR game. They want to feel like they're in the quote unquote, a real world. But I think you and I know, like we all know, playing games that are stylized, like Super Hot or even the first gen PSVR games, right? What was that one? Super Hypercube. Those are fantastic experiences, and they don't need, and Beat Saber, they don't need to be photorealistic.
I'm with you on that. No, 100%. And I'll play any interesting gameplay on the Quest, but I do see people, and probably a lot of these people are early adopters or not early adopters, late adopters who are coming from consoles and want to see, who just have high different expectations, who don't know what they're getting into. But I'll be curious to see how they compete with one another.
Well, like you said, Quest probably sold a ton this past holiday.
Yeah.
They don't release numbers publicly, but third-party tracking based on anecdotal evidence from developers and the sales they've been reporting, as well as the downloaded Oculus app and the mobile app stores that you need to pair your headset with. Number one on those charts after Christmas. So a lot of people got Quest 2s, and it was available on shelves, right? The price points seemed to be at that sweet spot. Ton of content out there, pushing Resident Evil 5. And one of the, I guess,
4.
two of the big, or Resident Evil 4, sorry, but two of the big features that the Quest 2 will still have over both PC headsets and PSVR 2 is built-in hand tracking. So hand tracking as a thing that Meta has done a lot of work on, that works out of the box and as for both for comfort and for experiences, and then also pass-through as a comfort option, even though it's black and white, in setting up your Guardian space, boundary space, but also developers being able to tap into that is going to be, I feel like, a big thing this year. And we have some of our first few apps that allow for pass-through coming out. Cubism being one of them, being released today as you listen to this podcast. If you haven't played Cubism, it's one of the simplest. It's like the perfect Tetris for VR. It's a puzzle game, volumetric puzzle game, where you're just fitting shapes, Tetris-like shapes, into different volume shapes, and wonderful, relaxing music. Works with hand tracking, and the new update will allow your background to be your real world. So the extra comfort of sitting on your couch in the living room and not feel like you're isolated from other people around you while having this floating, this puzzle in front of you with occlusion too. So your controllers will occlude over or behind the virtual objects. So a little bit of that augmented reality experience. And I got to try out the Cubism beta for the pass-through, and it is a big difference. Like,
really?
The amount of time I'm able to spend in the game, amount of comfort, just not feeling like I have that freak out moment of like, if I'm in the living room, of like being separated from other people having a conversation, or being afraid someone's going to get up to my face and mess with me. That just peace of mind, feeling like I could turn and look at someone and talk to them with, fake eye contact while still being in the game. That's the promise of AR. And I think that it's going to be my default for this game and other games that allow it, the pass-through going forward. So that's a free update, and the game is well worth getting if you just got a Quest 2 over this holiday break. We also had some news from HTC. HTC is such a funny company with what they've been putting out within the Vive. They had the Vive Flow, which was a media headset, right? Not really a gaming device, that's been out there for couple months now, and
that's the one
CES,
with the pancake lenses and the big old, yeah,
exactly, yeah, with some tracking, but really for like standalone media consumption. And they announced at CES Vive wrist trackers. So these are wristbands. They strap to your wrist like with watch bands, like these like silicone watch bands, but they have what look like one of these old like the old heart rate monitors back in like the mid 90s or something, or the early aughts, a bulky thing that goes on top of your wrist that can be used to track where you are and give your system better IK.
Cool.
Anything that's more than one item to put on is just going to be a hard sell. I just think back to all those Vive trackers, like you can attach it to like a baseball bat and make it into a VR thing, and none of those ever took off because it was just the extra effort in setting up a secondary item beyond the headset and all the peripherals that come with it just proved too much.
If anything, like at least this is another step towards democratizing motion capture, to regular people. And so if you're a small game developer and you want to do some sort of cutscene, using technology like this is a godsend.
There seems to be two target customer bases for this. One, it's clear that HTC sees more value in the kind of prosumer or the business market. So a lot of while we don't see the Vive pucks in a lot of consumers' hands, they have been used in a lot of like business for training, like medical fields, right? Where now there's a relatively affordable, VR solution for the Vive Business Edition, and this seems to be targeted for that exact same purpose, for training and for not necessarily not for games, but for people who want VR for collaboration and design and for all the business purposes that VR is being experimented in right now. You could also wrap it around objects. It doesn't have to be your wrist. And then the other target market seems to be the avatar market, the VR avatar community, right? Like as opposed to, a lot of people have bought trackers to wrap around their foot to do VR performance, for not just for performance capture for video games, but for content, right? It's this whole subgenre of content of people who have avatars like Unreal style metahuman avatars that they can track and communicate to the world in their avatar form. I think that's going to become more mainstream. Definitely is a big thing over in Asia, but tying into whatever the metaverse ends up being. So we're not just floating torsos that don't look each other. We can also have track wrists and ankles. Panasonic also announced a headset. It's called the MeganeX, and it's a Steam VR headset from a Panasonic subsidiary.
How did you say that without laughing? That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever named
it's
for
also
a product.
Capital X, so MeganeX. MeganeX. They kind of look like the Vive Flows in that they have these eye cups and pancake lenses, but it's a unique form factor for sure. They say they are micro displays with 2560 by 2560 resolution per eye, 120 hertz. So pretty good, higher than even the PSVR. And they run a Snapdragon XR1, lightweight, and the frames are foldable. So it's not a headset. It's kind of like foldable glasses that you put on that also work with tracking.
I saw Brad Lynch try this. He had a video on Twitter. He's at CES. And he was impressed by you could control the diopter for each eye. So you can dial in your prescription, which is cool.
All right. Yeah, okay. I mean, like, are we back in that era of companies just finding what's on, what's in the supply chain in terms of display and getting some commodity components and putting out something that just taps into, the Steam VR ecosystem? That feels very much like 2015, 2016 VR.
Yeah.
And then and maybe it's the resurgence, because we did have that quiet period when there was no investment in VR hardware. But maybe displays are out there again. Yeah. And then the last news, this came through just a press release, but there's a company called Brullion, I think it's called.
They're running out of names.
And they're making a light field display, I guess, from ex-MIT researchers. But I call this out because I'll put a link in the show notes. But it looks like a widescreen monitor that's also like a microfiche display with a hood on it, right? Like it looks like you're in a 90s library, but you're going to look at this display and you apparently get full 3D and 120-inch curved panel with panoramic virtual images without having to wear a headset. This is why I miss CES. I want to call this out because this is why I would be at CES if I want to go back, was to see hardware like this and that Panasonic headset. That's not stuff that we normally get to see, and it is perfect for CES.
I'm watching this video of it, and I still have no idea what this is. If I look through this device, this brick with a screen in it, does it look like I'm looking at a huge screen or something?
I think it's supposed to look like you're looking at a virtual screen, like
right.
full immersion.
But it doesn't actually project into the real world. That's right? That's an illusion.
Correct. I believe it is fixed focus at the distance you from the pixels,
right.
But I don't know if it uses eye tracking or what technology does. But this again, it feels like the thing that I have no idea what it is until I get to see it. And CES right now is the only place you would get to see it. Okay, let's do some roundup of other stuff at CES. We do have some pinball, Jeremy.
Bow! Yes, we got the new Rush pinball machine from Stern. Rush, the band, the Canadian Holy Trinity. You're familiar with them, yes?
You got to get some Neil Peart up in you.
That's right.
Let's go.
Rest in peace. This was obviously like they did the song Tom Sawyer that was in the teaser trailer for Ready Player One, and Will came on the Tested podcast and pronounced that Rush was not a good band. But I say, if they're good enough to make a pinball machine, how could that possibly be? This is a huge band. I love this band, and I am not buying this game, but I can't wait to play it. And it's very exciting to me. It's got like 15 songs. It's got a time travel theme. The premium and the LE version have a ramp that goes up and down. It kind of looks like Lord of the Rings, like the old George Gomez game from 15 years ago, where it has a ring in the center, which is the time machine, and you get the ball in there. It kind of hovers in the center of it, and then it gets sucked through, and who knows what. But it looks fun. Looks like it has a kick drum. And there's a clock. It's a clock, and the hands go around it. So it's got this whole time theme to it. I don't know what the gameplay is. No one does. But I look forward to learning more about it and seeing what that's all about. But yeah, man, Rush Pinball. It's been one of those games because they're like kind of like an acquired taste, the band. And so there's this whole community of people that have been, campaigning for a Rush pinball game for years. So the fact that they did it, I think that's they're kind of answering the fans on this one, which is a real gamble. But that's cool. It's cool.
Are those 15 songs the 15 songs you'd want to listen to over and over again in individual short snippets?
Yeah.
As you play a pinball game?
The one weird one that's missing is YYZ, which is this it's a song off Moving Pictures, which is an instrumental, and it's a very long, elaborate song. So people are wondering, like, is that going to be in a wizard mode? Is it hidden? Is it an Easter egg, or is it just not there? Nobody knows yet. But yeah, they picked they have great songs. But throughout the catalog, it's not just the early stuff. They did pick out some stuff from the 80s.
Yeah, I have no sense of what that area of CES looks like this year, where the pinball machines are.
It's virtual. They yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're not missing so much for not being there, but the announcement did come out. But of course, at CES you got your TVs. So what's the gimmick this year? I don't think it's not necessarily we're not moving 8K yet. 8K TVs have been around on the very high end for a little while now. It doesn't seem like manufacturers are comfortable making that the new standard because the content isn't there. It seems like brighter displays. So LG and Sony both have OLED displays that they say are brighter. On the LG side, there's still their high-end 4K displays. They have one that's like 90 inches now on the highest end. We're moving into that Kevin Smith. Remember when Kevin Smith bought a 100-inch LCD 1080 TV and he thought that was going to be the last TV ever bought? Like, at some point, just get a projector, right? Like, the weight and the power consumption, even of an OLED panel, above 80-something inches, I'm sure if I see it in person, I'll be Like I'll be awed by it, but at some point you just want to just get a short throw projector because those are getting better all the time. You're going to get a better pixel fill.
There's even those laser projectors that are coming out that look pretty darn good on even on non-reflective screens.
Yeah. So the LG side, they have a 97-inch on the high end, 4K. Their OLEDs this year, they say, are brighter than even before for HDR content being still, I think, a reason, a thing to look for, not just resolution when you're looking at TVs. They also go small. They're going, a couple manufacturers now at 42-inch 4K OLEDs, which for some gamers are considering that for their desktop monitors. As someone who's been using a 43-inch monitor for the past 5 years, I'm all for it. I think go big on your desktop, on your computer, and especially if you're going to use your computer monitor as maybe another device to plug your console into in your home office. Like 40 inches, 42 inches OLED, that'd be a nice sweet spot for that type of panel. Sony has their quantum dot base OLED, so the first to come out with that. So a little bit of explainer, like OLEDs, they emit light on a diode level, so you don't need a backlight, right? So you allow for true black levels, real bright. But even traditional OLEDs, the light is white, I believe, and it goes through per pixel has a color filter to get your RGB, and on LG TVs RGBW. So on a per pixel level, you still have subpixels. Quantum dots, which Samsung was the first to really push the quantum dots. It basically replaces that subpixel filter with a quantum dot arrangement that can be smaller, I guess.
You can't include the word in the definition.
I was worried exactly. when you're like, here's a quick explainer. So in quantum mechanics.
So it as opposed to using a traditional subpixel arrangement of RGB or RGBW, they use an arrangement of these dots. You can look at illustrations and Google them that give you the color and filter a blue light, which is brighter. And because you obscure less of that light with that subpixel dot arrangement, they can be brighter as well. So that's the next big thing in the TV market, at least from LG and Sony. And then, of course, you're getting TVs built in higher refresh rates. 120 hertz is becoming a standard, 144 hertz in some of these panels. And then everyone has their updates to their TV OSs that now support, game streaming. So game streaming built in TVs, your NVIDIA GeForce Nows and your Stadias even are getting built into your TVs without a set-top box needed as the processing becomes faster on those TVs. Graphics side, AMD, NVIDIA, big graphics card announcements. You got the 3090 Ti, I want to say. Is that the big one? Yeah, 3090 Ti.
Oh, God. Is it really? They made a new graphics card? Wow.
3090. They made the one. They made just one.
Yeah.
They haven't announced pricing, but yeah, it's going to be 24 gigs of GDDR6, 21 gigabits per second. They say 7% faster memory clock. It's, the high end and high end. It's because they can. Yeah. For ray tracing, for AI, sure.
I was actually more excited about their announcement of the 3050. I mean, it's obviously much lower end, but it's only going to retail for $250. And there was some indication, first of all, the cards are going on sale on later this month. There was some indication that they're going to be able to make a lot of these. And so if that's true, I feel like that's actually what's important. There is so little supply out there that's constricting things that I would take a 3050, given the specs they've kind of put out on there.
Yeah, and at that point you're getting RTX, you're getting some of the ray tracing that you can toggle on some of those features. The sweet spot for a game. You're not going to necessarily do 1440p at 144 hertz.
You're not
high-end games,
folding proteins either, but it's a little worth it.
Sure, that's not a thing anymore, isn't it?
No, so yeah, kind of like it. Yeah, we'll skip that over. There are some people that are using NVIDIA cards to actually do some protein folding analysis, but it's like it also combines with AI and stuff.
And then you have a lot of laptops, of course, announce everything from your Acers, your Asuses to your Dells, slim form factors. The story there really is on the high-end graphics side. You're getting new NVIDIA and AMD graphics on those cards that, again, take the laptops closer to the desktop level. Your 3080s on your 3080 Ti's on the laptops now can surpass a lot of desktop performance. And on the CPU side, the thin and lights are really trying to answer what Apple has been doing with the M1 and M1 Pros. So trying to get competitive in performance, but they're wattage-wise, the TDP is on these x86 parts are still relatively higher. And of course, it's not. It's apples and oranges when you talk about the Apple and Windows ecosystem, but trying to make Windows users a little happier with the type of performance you're getting off of these 12th gen Intel CPUs. A bunch of other cars announced, Vaporware cars, as people call them, right? Sony has a car, Chevy showed up a new car. Again, this is like CES of old, where Audi and GM will have big booths with their concept cars that probably don't ever make it to market.
Oh, come on. The Bolt was in that position not too long ago.
No,
One out of every
Jeremy,
10.
These cars are pure vaporware. You look at them and you're like, not even in the Matrix would these cars exist.
Really? Even the Chevrolet pickup?
They're perfect for exactly like Westworld in the Matrix. Like they'll rent these concept cars for a couple of shots to show a futuristic world, but to actually get them into manufacturing.
I was thinking more that like LG like truck pod that's like your work from home in a car, like that's vaporware.
Or the octocopters, right?
Yes.
Right? All that stuff. Oh, good. The good old days of octocopters that you could ride, the octocopter taxis that we saw at CES. And then a couple things that would have been in the side halls at CES. Formlabs, 3D printing company, has a new Form 3 Plus, replacing the Form 3. Shipping, I've been testing one of those. I'll have a review on tested in a couple of weeks, as well as a new build plate, which is amazing. And I've been having a lot of fun testing that. And Skydio, the drone company, has a new Skydio 2 Plus drone. This is the drone that never crashes because it maps the world in real time. It can do obstacle avoidance and subject tracking on a level that I still think has not been yet surpassed by any other drone company, even DJI. And they announced new cinematography software they call Keyframe, which is very reminiscent of what 3D Robotics did with their Solo drone, which is that using an AR system, you can map spots in real 3D space. So not just 2D on GPS. You can say at this altitude to this space, as opposed to just tethering and doing a cable cam from point A to point B, you can do a bunch of spots and then it'll dynamically create a splined path from point A to point B in a smooth motion, point A, point B to point C. So you're talking about like predefined keyframes.
Do you map the space with a flight first and then you have a model that you place these nodes into?
Yeah, so the previous software, you fly. You don't need to actually fly around the space. You could just say, using the phone, it's a kind of AR experience. You see what the camera see what the drone sees.
Yeah,
and you say, I want to tap there, and that's my point A, and tap there is my point B. It doesn't know what's necessarily between them, but when you turn the cable cam mode on, it will fly between them and avoid anything using its dynamic real-time mapping of the world, and then just kind of do a cable cam spinning 360 or tracking a subject. Now it can, as opposed to 2 points, you can do lots of points.
That's awesome.
Do a fast flight with a curved, smooth, splined, flight path that's creating.
Wow.
While also dodging things in real time.
And focusing on a subject or no?
I don't know if it's going to focus while it's doing that flight because the camera is, there's gimbaled camera in the front of it.
Yeah.
I presume that you could, to a certain extent, do that because it's not using that vision camera for its 3D mapping.
Wild.
Yeah.
I'm really curious what cinematographers are going to start switching to that. We're going to see these in films.
Well, I think we're going to see them in a lot of the sports stuff. Like it's perfect for mountain bikers and for snowboarders and skiers to set up these
Olympics.
paths.
Winter Olympics would be excellent for.
Anywhere where you can, the sound isn't a problem. Like the only issue with using it in film is you can't use it for dialogue. Like you can't use it in scenes where you need the natural audio because
Yeah, but it's gonna be used for like establishing shots and like those
right. No,
big,
yeah, yeah,
wide, expensive shots anyway.
yeah.
So
Yeah, and this is I think it occupies a similar space. It doesn't necessarily compete with the FPV community, and doing their insane flights. Just it's like the old the man versus machine, right? Because these FPV pilots are so proud of their ability to navigate small spaces with drones that don't need to have an array of world sensing cameras because it's all just by human sight, wirelessly transmitted, but they can get better and better and better video cameras stabilized and mounted on those FTB drones. And they're used in all sorts of like commercials now. You see them in like advertisements for the bowling alley or car dealerships, pure like wild, perfectly scripted and timed sequences, like long single shots of these drones flying through establishments and getting real close to people.
I
with
wonder
these music tracks.
how long it will be until we have like the AlphaGo of drone FPV, flying, where you have an AI that can compete with humans at that level.
You're talking about a weight trade-off, because
Yeah.
for an AI to do that, you would either need to pre-map the sequence, and so you have zero variability in the variables from collision to objects and avoidance and geometry and all that stuff, or stack it with sensors, in which case you lose. You're trading off speed, nimbleness, camera payload, all the other stuff. And so I think it's, for right now, the FPV pilots, the power of the human brain,
Yep.
right, is going to far surpass that. Yeah. I think that's about it.
I would shout out just one last thing from CES: the new OnePlus phone, and not because the phone itself is interesting. It has 80-watt charging for its 5,000 milliamp hour battery. 80-watt. I was just like, I don't have laptop chargers at that level, and so it says it can go from like 0 to 100 in 29 minutes. And I was like, on that battery, it is crazy. So I'm very curious about just, what the charging experiences are for people with that phone. I mean, obviously with like wireless charging, it's, significant. It's like the normal, very limited, but 80-watt, and you have to have a special charger, obviously.
Yeah. And this is OnePlus 10 Pro, the first phone after OnePlus merged with Oppo.
We didn't talk about our Christmas presents.
You guys get anything good for Christmas?
I wanted to tell you about this thing. So I saw this on Twitter. I think I got, advertised on Twitter, and it was one of those things I clicked. So, now I see it everywhere. But it's you've been having mini drones for every year. There's a new version of a mini drone. This one is encased in a ball, and it's perfectly weighted so that it hovers. And whichever way you tilt it, it kind of goes in that direction. So it becomes a ball that's almost like, oh God, what's in Harry Potter? What's the thing that flies? That Harry
Golden
Potter.
snitch.
Yes, it's like a golden snitch that flies across the room, and the other person grabs it. And so, or you like toss it up, and it will like slightly hover, or you can tilt it towards yourself and throw it out, and it comes back to you. It's super cheap, and it's like you can find these everywhere on Amazon, anywhere. And I recommend them. That's a fun little toy.
All right, we'll include a link. Yeah, just give a shout. What's the name of the product if people want to Google?
It's probably one of those things that you can be found under many names.
Got it.
But I have no idea. I'll find out.
All right, Jeremy's going to Rumpelstiltskin that for us and unlock the name. Kishore, how about you?
Oh, I got this amazing mug. I'll talk about. I got a couple different wireless earbuds. And I'll talk about this next week, but I think I'm done with Android. I'm having just the worst freaking experience with my Pixel, and it's I will relay a experience with support that just drove me insane, where they were like, yeah, the problem is with the Pixel launcher. So that's not on us. I'm like, you are Google. That is your problem. So anyways, we'll talk about that more next week. Yeah, I've been trying a lot of different wireless earbuds for both like for working out and just for different experiences. And I am super into transparency mode. So I'll talk about that more.
Heck yeah, man. Superpower. I was right. It can be had for anything. You just search Amazon for UFO sphere quad, and I see 10, and they're all the same product, and they all have different names. So you can get it for $25 if you're willing to wait, or $33 if you want it on Prime.
I'm not going to endorse that search query. Sorry. Like, there's going to be weird ads that you get served with Amazon. That search query.
Incognito, Sphere Quad.
Yeah.
Sphere Quad is the name you want to search. All right. Well, Happy New Year, everyone, to you guys and all the listeners out there. Thanks. Well, what will 2022 bring for us? Who knows? No predictions this year. We'll be back next week. Another episode and recap other stuff that may be announced at CES. We do have an outro. Oh, this one is holiday theme. It came in just before we wrapped last year, but I still think it's relevant.
Yep.
And
stay safe out there, everyone. It's wild, and hope everyone is taking the precautions they need to be taken.
Amen to that. All right. Thanks for listening, guys. This one's called, well, I want to give you the name, but here it goes. See you next week.
Hi there, I didn't see you.
Test it.
Two things this week to keep it short and sweet, or at least sweet, maybe not so sweet, but we're going to talk about Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, and we're going to talk about Half-Life Alyx.
Star Wars.
That was a Star Wars.
Mandalorian Chapter 7. Wow.
That's the first cliffhanger in the entire series. And thank God it's not the end of the season, because that would be a long wait.
It devastated me.
Yeah.
Can we spoil that too? Or
Why not?
Let's not.
Like, people are talking about Force healing as if it was first seen in the Rise of Skywalker, and it wasn't. It was in Mandalorian.
Well, who saw it, right?
By like hours. Literal hours.
It was, yeah.
Test it.
Oh, that was nice.
Bunch of nerds. Who are those guys?
I don't know. Who would listen to them? All right. See you next week. Bye.